You know that feeling that you get in your stomach when you're in your office working when camp's going, and some staff member you haven't talked to in a few days comes, peeks their head in the door, and says to you, "Yeah, I think I'm done."
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
Running camp comes with enough moving parts. Ultra Camp keeps registration, payments, and communication in one place so you can spend less time juggling systems and more time building an incredible camp experience. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker.
Hello, Camp Mavericks, and welcome to the Camp Hacker podcast brought to you by Ultra Camp and the Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic. My name is Chris Hudson, and I am a camp consultant that helps camps bring their values into policy.
And I am Travis Allison. I'm a summer camp consultant specializing in helping camps reclaim their staff time, build resilience, and reignite their purpose.
And I am Emily Golinsky, excited to be here, and founder of Bright Loose. I am also a consultant and a trainer. I work with camp schools and youth organizations to help folks navigate messy situations and work their way out of them with good strategies.
Emily, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Emily, just quickly, how did you get started at camp?
Oh, my mom stuck me on a bus when I was 4, and I just never really looked back.
4?
I think day camp at 4. Overnight, we waited until 7, which I think on balance was a good choice.
Yeah.
I was a camper, and it was very impactful in my life. And
Yeah.
then I took a short break, went to pharmacy school, realized I'd made a very poor decision, and came back into the camp world and found out it was a profession, and that was the story in
That's
2
great.
seconds or less.
Yeah. Was there one particular thing that was super impactful when you were a kid at camp?
I think just being in such an environment of support and it just being a place where I could really be myself and be welcomed as who I was, which was a bit of an odd kid, I think. And I really enjoyed being able to go and reinvent myself in the summers and have adults there that were there for that.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, welcome to Camp Hacker. We're grateful you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
And again, yay.
Today we're talking about what happens when staff quits in the middle of the summer. I think we probably all do know what that feeling is. The surprise, the disappointment, occasionally the inner celebration if it's just the right person leaving. But there's definitely things that go into this. We thought we should spend some time thinking about today. Emily, have you had that happen to you before?
Oh, yes. Many times, and frankly, multiple times this summer. And I worked for the majority of my camp career as the executive director of a camp for children with significant emotional behavioral needs. And that's not a setup for success for every person that thinks they want to be a camp counselor and just, hang out and have fun with kids. So definitely navigated my fair share of staff exits for sure.
And how about you, Chris? Does it happen very often in Highlight? Highlight's a shorter program, so
It's a shorter program.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened very often. When it did, the one time, I'm really thinking about it now. No one's ever left. But one time though, at the first campfire, like within 4 hours of the kids being there was a counselor who was like, I don't think this is for me. And I was like, you better shut up and get back in there because we were out of time. No, it wasn't quite like that. But there was that moment where it was like, oh gosh, we just got, I always think that once the cabin meetings start, my job as the director, like most of it is over, right?
Yeah.
Now I just get to be the avuncular guy who shows up to activities, makes staff nervous, and thrills the kids. So like hearing that, I was just like, what am I gonna do? It's a terrible feeling.
Yeah.
But I do want to, when you're doing the intro, I was like, oh my gosh, because I'd had that feeling. It's the same. It's a version. It's a cousin of the feeling you get whenever anything crops up at camp, right? But that's a huge one. The thing I wanted to say is that when you like the secret celebration, when it's the right the right staff member leaving,
totally.
I've had that too with a firing, and I was so excited to do it. I know we're not talking about firings, but I mean, I think we're talking about today, like, what do you do? And as always, I'm going to start with preparation.
Yeah.
One, and listen, this is the drum I've been beating for years. Think, because the phrase camp magic makes me want to open this window and jump out. I
Mm.
think we, in the preparation, we can do a way better
Usage.
job of explaining what the job is to people before they
Yes.
arrive. I know we're not paying them much. So we really sell it. We sell the fun. We sell them being with a bunch of hot, sexy people their age. Like we sell that really hard. And I think what
Mhm.
we should sell is the responsibility and the stress of doing the job, because not everyone is cut out for that. People who are cut out for fun and hanging out with young, sexy early 20s, like they're not necessarily cut out for like 17-hour days and kids vomiting on you. And I think we have to be really clear on that, not to scare people away, but just to give them the balance of the job. Someone else jump in. I've been talking too much, but I have more on this topic. But
Good.
Emily.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, which is the balance, right? Because the camp directors that I'm talking to are trying to be honest. They are trying to give folks a good understanding. And also this generation is ill prepared. You know, this young generation is ill prepared to take care of other kids, because there's still many of them being taken care of as children themselves, right? And
Yeah.
so, you know, we don't put pictures of, you know, as you said, vomiting kids on our website. And I was going to say brochure, but that would really age me, right? But like when staff go to our website and they see everyone's happy and there's this just almost toxic
Yeah.
positivity in the images, and
Yep.
then
Yep.
you get to camp and a kid is crying and they're like, "Ooh, does not compute, wrong job," and you're just like, "Oh wow, we didn't mean that people were going to be smiling 24/7. It's just that
Yeah.
if we put all the crying children there, no one would send their children here."
Yeah.
So that's awkward.
I think we should put a vomiting child picture on the website. No, maybe not. But yes, to your point,
You know
absolutely.
what to expect for staff page.
Exactly. Just on your staff page, you say no parents, please, and then you show them you show them the kid with like the bloody nose and like all of it. No, but in all seriousness, though, I think we can do a much better job of really leaning on the youth development and childcare aspects of the job, and less about the like ultimate frisbee 7 hours a day. Like that is true, and it's also not true, right? Because all that is interrupted by like the real deal of doing this work. Also, I want to know what you two think, but like, I think it's worthwhile to talk to the staff about what happens if you must leave.
Yeah.
I just think that's worthwhile, and not necessarily to
Yep.
frame it like if this isn't for you, right? But to frame it as what happens if you should leave. So just everyone knows the practical steps, but what's more, it gives you an opportunity. It gives you an opportunity to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Pre-convince them not to do this, you know? Because as part of that discussion, you can really lean in on like, I know this sounds super manipulative, but on the community trauma of that, right? And just for people to be really sure about whether this is the job for them, because although we have a protocol for you leaving, it may be easy for us to enact, but it's really hard for the children to digest. So if this is something that you are on the fence about, let's talk more about that before we like jump in and you sign a contract.
It's really interesting, Chris, because you're talking about pre-contract and the
Yes.
consideration of quitting. And I think I went through, now I've been out of, you know, running a camp for a few years directly. And instead I get to just like poke my nose under other people's tents and tell them how to run theirs, which is, you know, fantastic.
That is, it's really my lane as
Isn't
well.
that
Yeah.
lovely? And then drive away at the end of the day and be like,
Yes.
good. But I did go through a period of time where we were hardcore convincing people when they would show up in our office in the middle of the summer and say, "I think I'm done." We went straight into convincing mode. And I went through a period of time where sort of reevaluated the risk of that, the sheer liability and also the emotional risk for others at the camp of having somebody who is in the process of making that decision, or maybe has even made it before they came and told you about it, and then walking them back from the edge of that cliff. And I think sometimes we want to do that, and other times letting them go is not letting them go as in firing them, but letting them leave is actually the right thing, celebratory or otherwise.
I feel like if someone wants to leave, you let them go.
Correct.
You let
I
them
don't know
go.
that everybody believes that, though. I think some people
I-
work
it's
very,
not.
very,
People
very
don't.
hard to hold on to their ratios.
People work on that very hard, but this is my thing. I'm saying it all season. If I'm at a conference, you can see me talking about this. If you come to a conference, but like same thing with homesick campers, send them home. If they don't want to be here, send them home. It's just it's going to be easier. It's less stress on your culture. And when it comes to employees, you know what the worst employee is? Someone who doesn't want to do the job. And you know what the
Mm-hmm.
worst job for someone who doesn't want to do their job is? Childcare.
Camp counselor.
Yeah, camp
Well, and
counselor,
there's a
child
big
care youth development.
difference. There's a big difference between it's when they say it versus when they've decided. So are they venting
True.
or declaring, right? If
Yeah.
they're
Fair.
venting, then let's support, let's figure this out, let's offer solutions, let's help regulate. If they are declaring and we're late in the game, then we need to respect that decision
Mhm,
and make that departure for them feel not like a giant failure.
mhm.
Yeah.
Agreed. Travis, me and Emily have been tennis
Yeah,
matching.
sorry.
Weigh in.
That's fine.
Weigh in, please.
That's fine. So stuff that you haven't, or just sort of haven't, I want to spend time in some specific places that you folks haven't covered, just to not repeat, because
Mhm.
I agree with the stuff that both of you have said. I do think that you start to trace this back to, so if you're looking at this from the situations like this is somebody who's great, who should be here, that we have allowed to burn out, then we need to start to look backwards. And maybe we need to look at the CIT program and make sure that they get a true image of what it means to be a counselor when they're a CIT. Sometimes being a CIT is like about talking about leadership without a lot of practical experience.
I was just going to say.
And, we always had at least a week of in-cabin time as a CIT, which is great. I loved my CITs when I was a camper. It was so fun to get to know them.
Mhm.
An assumption that every camp has a CIT program.
Right. That is that's totally an assumption.
Mhm.
I would certainly advocate for some form of training between camper and staff. But I also think that, some places, and this is regional, but some places staff are allowed to counsel before they're 18, as long as there is a co-counselor who's 18. And so, but there are places where you have to be 18 to counsel. And there's like the weird gap between finishing as a senior camper at 15 or 16 and then coming back 3 years later. And so I like something in there to make them see the other side of what it means to be on the other side of running camp for someone else instead of being there for yourself.
Yeah.
So CIT, have them really see it, have them really see the stress or hear about it. But I also think things like on your job application, first of all,
Okay.
you should have a page on your camp website that says staff, and it's all about how great your staff is for parents. Your staff page should not be your staff application page. Big pet peeve of mine. Because parents will, if you're looking, like most of us, we don't think about it, but parents will always look at your staff page because they want to know who's going to look after their kids. So then you should have a apply for summer job or summer job page or whatever. And some of that should include, this is going to be hard. And I think that between applications, interviews, and hiring in particular, there needs to be a lot more communication with staff these days between the moment they get an offer to the moment they arrive for staff training. And some of that is tools, some of that's a little bit of training. It's who you're reinforcing the support systems, all of those kind of things, so that people arrive a little bit better prepared. Doesn't mean that there isn't going to be amazing people who have to pull the chute. That's just going to happen because we don't know what state they arrived to us with. But I think we can be proactive about it so that we don't get into this situation as much as some camps might.
Yeah, I mean, you asked at the beginning if I'd ever had anyone leave midsummer, and I said many people. And thinking back on that answer now, especially after Chris was like, I don't think ever in my career I've had someone quit. And I'm like, oh, what was I doing wrong? But I will say, there was a moment there, but the camp I was speaking about, there was no camper to staff pipeline because the children that attended the camp were not in a position to be able to be staff. And so the first time people were walking into the job, there was no CIT, there was no preview, there was staff training and then camp. And so I do think for those programs that don't have that ability to sort of slowly ramp up the level of responsibility, and they go from this, week of, college, like environment, fun, social, and then the next day kids are there vomiting on them, if you will. And like that's a very hard transition. And I agree with you that a CIT program enables folks to kind of determine whether or not this is something that they really want to do as an adult. That's a significant piece of it.
So I'm going to be controversial. I don't like CIT programs.
Mhm.
I have a lot to say about it. I'm going to write about it one day. I have a lot to say about it. I think
If only you ran a podcast.
yeah, some other people were forced to listen to me half an hour every other week. Listen, just because you attended camp does not mean that you will be good at looking after other people's children and ensuring their safety. Most CIT programs run as if they are summer camp light themselves, because again, usually CIT programs, they're charging the parents for the CIT to be there. So they are providing a service, right? So it's going to be fun first, right? Responsibility second, which when you get the job, it's actually flipped. So, and I'm not calling any one program out. It's just generally that's been my observation. I think, and that's maybe a whole different podcast, like what I would suggest other than a CIT program. So I don't want to get derailed there, but I do think that, what was I going to say? Oh man, there was that. I was going to say something else super controversial. I can only keep one controversial thought in my head at a time. Apparently, someone else go and I will think about it. Oh man, this is why I take notes during this then.
Well, I'm curious. I mean, just talking about in that moment, right? Aside from the prevention and the proactivity, you know, I think about sort of what advice, if someone's listening to us right now, what advice do they want when that staff person walks in the door and says, I think I'm done? And when I think about that, I think about all the productive solutions I could provide. But I think the honestly, for me, it comes down to, we don't need to solve everything in that moment for that staff person. Sometimes, just like with a homesick camper, we just need to make this afternoon or tomorrow feel doable.
Sure.
Right. And that isn't necessarily convincing them to stick it out at all costs. That's saying, if we're still in a place where we want to try, like, what can we do to help you regulate and reconnect today? As opposed to,
I'm sorry,
we need you for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, get it together.
Can we agree that we don't do that? Can we all agree that that is a bad idea? Convincing a young person who doesn't want to take care of children to take care of children is a bad idea. Okay. Sure. And I think anyone who's listening to this, if you've had this experience, you know that pit in your stomach feeling. The one thing I want to say, I mean, what are camp directors worried about when that happens? Ratio, right? First thing, like, oh my God, this cabin only has one counselor in it. Now, what am I going to do? Okay.
Yep.
So, and listen, nobody's sitting around with like 3 or 4 staff members on the bench just ready to go in case this happens. If you are, congratulations, run a session, everyone will attend. Okay, I swear to you, everyone will attend. But it is doable. There are ways to move people around. I remember one year a staff member had to leave, and this was not ideal. But the assistant director moved in there and was the counselor and the assistant director. He got 2 paychecks, so he was happy about that. But also that's the year he started losing his hair. So I guess, you know.
You knew the same person.
What's that?
I said, I think I know. I don't know. Maybe we crossed paths in some previous life, because I feel like I knew the same human. Yeah, no,
it wasn't ideal, but we were able to kind of get through it, and no one died. And that's the thing. I know our jobs are thinly veiled risk management jobs. You know what I mean? That's what we do. We manage risk all day long. And I understand someone leaving, you're like, oh my gosh, that entire cabin, it's going to sink. You can absolutely figure it out. I'm interested in the impact on the culture, because that impacts the staff and then impacts the kids. Traumatic. I said traumatically, but I meant dramatically.
Dramatically.
But now I want to think about
I
that.
think that was a good.
Let me think about that. Go ahead.
Well,
Someone
I
else.
think how we respond to one person wanting to quit teaches the entire staff kind of what sort of place you're running.
100%.
Right.
Yep.
Who you are and how you handle yourself in adversity, and also whether you care about these folks as individual humans or just as cogs in your little staff spreadsheet. You know, and the answer should be the former, not the latter. But in reality, I do think we get into that zone. It's the middle of the summer and you're just thinking it's only week 5. If they leave and you're already moving the chess pieces and you forget that there's a human being standing in front of you that's, you know, 16 years old, terrified to talk to you in the first place, has no idea how to manage this moment. And like, frankly, if we don't, you know, help them in that moment, the next person we're going to hear from is their mom. And like, that's even worse. You know, that's a podcast in and of itself also, isn't it?
I think we did that. Oh, God. Talking to staff parents. Oh My
Yeah.
God.
So I feel like, I do think like retention of staff in that critical moment can't be about pressure. It has to be about like making that stay feel possible on both sides,
Sure.
right? Because they also can't walk out of your office and be like, "Oh, I threatened to quit, and instead I got a raise." And
Right. Oh yeah.
right, like
Yeah.
there's some things that we
Yeah.
we should not reach to in trying to keep people because they are very counterculture. To your point, Chris.
Yeah.
For sure.
Exclusive for CampHacker listeners, grab Ultra Camp's free guide, The Parent Experience Checklist. Practical steps to simplify registration and keep families coming back. Download at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker. Parents don't want clunky processes, and you don't want constant phone calls. UltraCamp helps you simplify registration with mobile-friendly forms, offer payment plans that work for your families, reduce calls and emails with automated reminders, and keep parents engaged with built-in communication tools. UltraCamp helps you create smooth, stress-free parent interactions so your team can focus on camp, not customer service. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker. So I have a few disjointed points that I've been noting as the two of you have been speaking. So let's start at this point, which is when the person's in the office, and I'll work backwards from there. I think one, you have to have a plan for this because it's going to happen. So you have to have a plan. And I do know camps that are able to hire one or two extra people who, can do some staff relief, et cetera. And so and have thanked their lucky stars every single summer they've managed to do that. There's always been some reason that they needed that extra body. So that's a good long-term strategy. But I think in the moment, you definitely have to think about the person and what they need and be ready for some real conversation around what's this about, in order for you to assess, is this person, can I coach this person? Is it the right thing to do to coach this person? Or am I just thanking them for their service and providing a good ending to probably their camp career for a lot of them and, putting a good button on that. But I think part of the preparation is, like bodies ahead of time, but you also have to have a policy when you quit. Because this is from our experience where we didn't have this policy and the person's like, I quit and my parents are picking me up tomorrow. And we're like, that's just not going to work for us. And other people that we fired that we weren't able to get off the site very quickly, who ended up just having a pity party. It was just a string of other staff members going to hear them cry. And I've seen that can happen when someone's like, I just got to pull a chute. If they're popular, they have lots, a couple of good friends there. It's hard for everybody to do that, but you have to be ready to say, okay, if you quit, this is final. This is the right choice. And here's what happens. We take you to the bus, we get you off site, we give you an hour to pack up. And it's not because we don't, want you to be part of the community. It's just that the community has to function as a summer camp when you're here
Without you.
I was just gonna say, Travis, that conversation has to happen not just with that staff person in that moment, but during staff training to the entire group, which is, if someone comes to us, please understand that this isn't right. Like, this is why we do it this way. So that it's not a shock in the moment, but also so that everyone else isn't like, this person just disappeared in the middle of the night. You disappeared them. And you're like, well, but we did tell you that that's how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So about that. Yes. People get disappeared. At my camp, if you get fired, you never see another individual at the camp again. Right. And if you have to stay, we move you into an empty cabin. You don't come you meet your meals at a different time. It's just, you're not encountering another staff member or child because we're controlling the narrative here. Similarly,
No,
go ahead.
That's with any company.
No, I just mean, yes, that's definitely the case for fired, but you need to also have the situation for when they quit, that there's some boundaries that they know ahead of time that we talked.
Same thing, because again, you think about after the situation, the culture of that, right? For the kids, they won't it doesn't matter how you pitch it, they're not going to understand why that person left, right? And a lot of kids are going to feel like it's their fault, right? So that you have to really control the culture of that. Also, I want to challenge something that you said, Travis. I'm going to talk and think at the same time. So let's see where we go.
Okay,
But with homesick kids, when we send them home, it's not final, right? What we tell them is that, perhaps this was experimental for you, and, we stay in touch, and the aftercare is pretty intense. because we don't want them to have a bad break. Similarly, if a staff member feels like they can't handle it, every situation is different. I don't know if that camp member needs to be blacklisted. I think how you handle that situation will inform how they return, if they return to the industry. If you really take care of someone and really address their concerns and their needs while also acknowledging that they would like to leave, right? And honoring their agency, I think like as an employer, you're going to shine brightly in their head, right? And they might want to return to such an understanding space. Now, I'm not saying you should let, no raises, no perks, nothing like that, because again, you're not being rewarded for quitting, but I don't think you should be punished either. Like, it's disappointing that we signed a contract and now, you reneged on it. That's disappointing, but also shit happens, right? Maybe it's good feedback for us too. Maybe we didn't. Can you tell us why you're leaving? Maybe we didn't fully train you, or like give me the information, help us make this better for someone else, and maybe for you should you return next year.
Well, also when you were saying like it's not to punish them. Like I think about consequences, and consequences are supposed to be a teachable moment, right? The best consequence is something that is a direct result of the action. So they had their own consequences from that situation. Maybe they were doing camp as an internship and they are leaving, and now they've paid a bunch of money in school credit, but they aren't going to get the grade, or they don't have a reference from this time that they've already put in, because at least we should be telling them, please don't list me as a reference. That makes it real awkward for everybody, right? So we've all been there. You get that call in September and you're like, oh,
really?
I don't want to
Put me down as a reference.
Yeah, you weren't great at this, dude.
Right? You literally cried out of my office and got on a bus. Yeah,
do it. You didn't do the job.
You were talking about I think you said earlier, like some of your thoughts are controversial, and I don't think they're controversial. I think they're hard to hear. That's different. These shouldn't be controversial thoughts at all. They should be.
I agree.
They should be enlightening.
But I say these things and people clutch their pearls, and I'm like, what?
Travis, I made a note when you said about people say like they can't. It's a bonus if they can afford to have a couple of extra staff, and I've been advocating and trying to shout from the rooftops that every camp needs a few extra people. And I can't tell you how many times people say, well, we can't hire someone in case someone quits because we don't have the budget. And I'm like, well, no, you literally do have the budget because that person is quitting. So you will not be using their entire salary. So by definition, you do actually have. And so I think it's hard though for folks that are especially new to the industry and learning how budgets work to have that as a matter of faith that at some point over the summer, someone will leave early. And so you're not going to end up having an extra staff person in your budget. You're going to end up slotting them into a space that opens up, and it's going to even out in the end. But the stress comes off of you because there's someone waiting in the wings.
Yeah. I was thinking about other like prevention or indicators or things we can watch for. And I mean, I think that there's probably signs for most people that something is up, and that we can train our supervisors to be really thoughtful and intentional and better observers of that. But another thing a thing I've been thinking a lot about the last few years, and I'm putting it into play with clients this summer, is that I think we need to have better feedback from our staff regularly. It's like a 5-minute fill in this form where we give them time, not we send them home at the end of the day on the bus with the kids and expect them to spend 5 minutes on a form with us once a week, but that we set aside time. We look after the kids. You get your phones for this 5 minutes to just fill out the survey of this week. It can be anonymous. That's the first choice. It can be not if you want some help, but that kind of thing gives us a better feel for how camp is going earlier. Like, it's just a tool. You probably won't know who the quitter is, but if you see there's a lot of self-satisfaction, and we all know from a tight camp community where people are just together all day long every day and or sleeping at your site, that sometimes something gets going amongst the staff that eventually you can be like, I think it'd be all right if this person went because of how they're negatively impacting the rest of the staff. But I think there could be signs ahead of time before this moment that if you put some things into play, you feel like you have a little better read on your whole staff and how they're doing.
And which
I
questions you're asking in that survey as well, right? Because
Oh yeah.
social dynamics amongst the staff are a huge hidden driver
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
retention issues, right? And so if you're
Yep.
asking, how's everything going with your group? Are your supervisors supporting you? But you never touch on how do you feel in terms of your own personal belonging, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel
Yeah.
a member of like a member of the community or things like that? Then
Mhm.
you're not getting the right data, right? So you're still going to be surprised.
Yeah.
No?
No. You're right. You're absolutely right. I think
Like you're wrong.
I'm not a huge fan of anonymized feedback.
Oh, that, yeah.
I don't find it useful. I think it's a weird dodge of responsibility. If someone, but this is more of my personal opinion than my professional one. I just don't enjoy anonymized. Like, anyway, but to your point, Travis, I think getting people to give us feedback, and we have a whole loop about this where the supervisor are constantly asking the line staff for feedback on their jobs. Also, as a trainer coming in, I can see them in the audience, and I'll point them out to the camp director. I'll be like, you need to watch this person, that person, this
Yes,
person.
totally.
Because I was doing stuff with them for 4 hours, and they didn't speak to anyone, and they didn't look at me. So you like nip that in the bud now. Find out what's going on before the kids arrive, and before you do all the scheduling.
I'm not the only person that sticks my nose out and does that.
Oh, I do it all the
I
time.
always worry when I'm walking away that I just like took it one step too far. Like, thanks for all your help, thanks for all your training, but also like leave my staff to me. And I'm always cautious in how I say it, but I feel like I just saw this so clearly. I see what's about to happen, folks. Like, let's.
Yeah. People that invest in outside trainers are way more open to that than people that won't bring in outside speakers. So I think you're automatically in the right audience.
Yeah. Also, because about 60% of the stuff that I talk about is inclusivity related.
Yeah.
It's really hard for people who disagree that all children and people should be treated equally and equitably. It's really easy to spot them in a crowd when you're having those conversations. And because that's foundational, I think all camp directors would like to know who can't handle the conversation about it. Yeah. I don't think, Emily, that you would be stepping on anyone's toes. And I don't know if you're out there listening and you disagree, I'd love to hear why. But I think for the most part, yeah, like Travis said, if they're bringing us in, they want the help. They want help. Yeah. We see things that they don't. We can say things that they can't. That's the gig.
I want to say one thing before we wrap things up here. I think that it's incredibly important in 2026 and going forward that you have some version of training after training, whether it's just little quizzes or remember we talked about this, but I think it's even harder today for young adults to go from training as feels like college to the first day that kids get there and to bring all of the stuff that you were learning in a very fun way, to bring it all forward with you to the job. And I think the best camps are super proactive about just reminding staff and giving them tools. And Gabrielle, who's been on the show for years, a co-host with us, they have this pocket counselor that is they're required to have with them. It's on a carabiner clip and laminated sheets of just quick things that you need to know. Sometimes it's just games, but it's like the daily schedule. It's who you go to for help. It's it's a lot more intentional. And I think that kind of thing is proactive in terms of maybe not getting your staff to a point where they're just so overdone that they just have to pull the chute. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you both for that. Let us move on to our tool of the week.
Tool of the week.
I'm going to start with a tool this time. I was talking to a camp pro this week who's like, I just have to get better at selling. And I just have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And it's like, sometimes you kind of do, but you can also work this out so that it doesn't feel like that. And I'm going to put an article in the show notes that a friend of mine wrote about her experience as an entrepreneur and feeling so uncomfortable with selling and how she gets herself ready for that. So for us, I think that's when we are talking to parents on the phone or having a meeting with a donor if that's your camp, or all those things. You have to get comfortable with the idea that you're convincing, and my friend Carol will he has a whole framework around it that'll make it easier for you, I think. So you check out our show notes at camphacker.tv to see this and Emily's suggestion of her tool of the week.
Oh, all right. I have the 2 sips rule.
Yeah.
So this is if someone is overwhelmed, if you're feeling, flooded in that moment, you're having a hard time regulating, it's 2 slow sips of water before responding, ideally cold water. But it's a really classy micro pause to interrupt the panic without making it this whole thing, right? So if you feel like, well, if I just take a deep breath, people are going to think I've gone away somewhere. I'm having some kind of moment. So if you don't want to look awkward while you're taking that moment, just take a sip of, just hydrate. Just hydrate. Nice little sip. It resets your system, but it also gives you an excuse to just collect yourself for half a second before you respond. We call it the 2 sips rule.
I love that.
Yeah.
There's always a moment. There's always a moment between stimulus and response. I love that. My turn. So
Please.
I just came back from a conference, and everyone's like flinging business cards at each other, like throwing stars, like. And I don't have any business cards anymore. Why? Because I have something called dot cards. A dot card is like a single plastic, or if you're feeling fancy, metal card, which you can pick the color of. And basically it's got a QR code on one side, and the whole thing itself, if you just take it and tap someone's phone, it just gives them access to all your information, whatever information that you want to share, whether it be your website, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your email, whatever it is. The thing that I really love about it is that when you do that and someone opens it, they're asked to put their contact information in, which is so great when you're running around a conference. And I hate business cards. 2, I just love that at the end of the day, I go home, open up a website, and there's everyone I talk to. Also, it timestamps it so I know where I met them. And it gives me an opportunity to enter notes so I can really keep track. I met this person at this conference. I met this person in the hallway, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really cheap too. It's like $20 or $24 to get one. So unless you want the metal one. So if you're fancy, you're used to paying more. But otherwise, it's great. And the QR code is perfect because at the end, on the last slide of your presentation, you just put the QR code up. Everyone in the room now has all your contact information, and they'll share theirs with yours, which gets rid of the whole sign-up sheet debacle and drama.
Well done. And if you are more inventive than paying to solve a problem, you can use your phone to override a hotel key card to do exactly the same thing. That can. NFC tags are rewritable.
Oh, okay. Forget what I said.
Well, no, yours will look better. There's no doubt.
Who cares
But
what it
some
looks like?
people will be like, I'm going to spend 20 bucks on
shit.
Who
You can
needs
make
business
it look
cards?
fancy.
My tool of the week is doing what Travis just said.
That's
I'm
everyone's
overriding
tool
my
of the week
tool.
should be doing what Travis said.
Yes, I think do what he said. It's cheaper and kind of cool. Very, very Ninja Spy stuff. Very Ninja Spy stuff. I love that.
You can also stick an NFC sticker that costs between 2 and 4 cents a piece. You can stick it on any object that you have at the front table with you if you're speaking, or that's something in your pocket that is a toy or something that has just enough spot to put a sticker on it, and it'll do exactly the same thing.
I'm picturing myself sharing like my chapstick with someone instead of a business card.
Exactly. That is the
my
one.
brain is going in there's a lot to think about, guys.
Yeah, that is exactly
That's
the
kind
one.
of cool. Okay, that's another YouTube video I need to watch.
Yes, NFC tags, and look up NFC tags and automations. That's a rabbit hole. All right. Well, I want to thank you both. Chris, if people want to follow up, how do they get in touch?
Well, it's easy. Get my QR code. No, it's okay. I'll just tell you the information right now. You can email me at planetchris@gmail.com. I insist that you go to my website, planetchris.net, which shows you all the cool stuff that I do, and also a link to a parenting group that I'm starting. So if you're a parent, check that out. Yeah. And also NFC stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just get a sticker, pop it on. I'll show up. I don't know how that works, but I'm going to find out.
Sounded good.
Everyone who's listening, you should definitely send your parent friends to look at Chris's new course that he's running.
You
It's
really
amazing.
should. You really
I
should.
know. I agree. Emily, thanks for joining us on CampHacker.
Thank
How
you
can
for
people get in
having me.
touch?
It's been a pleasure. Oh, well, should people want to get in touch with me, they can email me. It's Emily, Emily, at brightmoosetraining.com, which is bright as in shiny, moose as in, and then just training.com. So Emily at brightmoosetraining.com. Or they can also find me on the interwebs at brightmoosetraining.com.
If people
Love
miss
that.
the
Thanks.
moose sound, can you just do it one more time?
Oh, I don't think anyone missed it, but sure, just for you, Chris. It comes out a
Okay.
little different every
Thank
time.
you.
And yes, I do stand up at conferences and introduce myself in the exact same
I
way.
know.
Perfect.
I've
Perfect.
seen it. I've seen it. Excellent. Well, I'm grateful for the two of you. I want to take just a second when we're here and highlight another Go Camp Pro podcast. In particular, I want to encourage you to check out The Pudding, which is the show about the research done in the camp industry that I run with Dr. Mandy Baker. And we recorded The Pudding just before this and had a wonderful conversation with a camp director who's doing some incredibly cool things. So I would probably at the time this comes out, you can do search for The Pudding and look for Megan Gardner, and she's brilliant.
Sounds
The Pudding.
awesome. That sounds cool. I will listen to that. Travis and Emily and I want to thank the sponsors of this week's episode, as well as our editor, Ryan Vandetoren, and Go Camp Pro's executive producer of podcasting, the one and only Matt Wilfred.
Thanks for the evening, friends.
The Camp Hacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening. Camp Hacker, bringing your world into focus.